love and peace. Today I wanted to do a demonstration in regards to President Wilson, Unconditional Surrender, Tuesday, October 8th, 1918. President Wilson has stated 5 principles upon which this country will consent to confer for peace. Principles sound and consistent with all the highest ideals of Americanism. He is in favor of the League of Nations after the war. This league will be formed at the peace conference and will be the means of dealing impartial justice to all nations for all time. It will be the best method available for ensuring a permanent peace. The president's 5 principles are as followed. There must be impartial justice to all nations without any discrimination between them. No special interest of any nation or group of nations can be the basis of any settlement or part settlement if not consistent with the common interest of all nations. There can be no league, alliance, or special understanding within the general or common family of the League of Nations. There can be no selfish, economic combinations within the league, nor the use of any boycott except as means of discipline. All international agreements and treaties must be made known to the rest of the world. These terms are definite and unequivocal. There can be no question as to what the United States will consider when it comes to peace terms. They are sound principles upon which the future peace of the world may safely be founded. They are based on the fundamental idea of a League of Nations after the war. With the coordination that this would procure, the 5 terms are bound to bring about a condition that will do much to destroy a possibility of future wars. Look at these days and times though. They didn't follow the highest principles demand, the 5 principles. And after the establishment of this league, the president gives his 5 principles which shall govern the actions of the league, which is love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. There shall be no injustice done to any nation or group of nations. The first condition of this keynote of the whole peace proposition, which the administration will stick for against all opposition. It is fundamental according to the ideas of the American people. This will safeguard the small nations which has been crushed in the war. This will safeguard the rights of the nations which have been divided and ground down under the heat of the oppressor for generations. In plain English, it is simply the American doctrine of fair play applied to international negotiations, which is also free enterprise, no licenses, LLCs. The second principle is really a corollary of the first, for it is based directly upon it. No special interest of any nation or group of nations shall form basis for a peace settlement or partial settlement unless it is thoroughly consistent and to the common interest of all the nations. This makes sure that there shall be no discrimination between any of the nations which take part in the peace conference. For instance, Russia has long desired a permanent outlet to the Mediterranean. These desires will not be allowed to work on the disadvantages of the small countries which are situated in the Balkan Peninsula. Other nations might not like this or that, but these wishes cannot be granted by the League of Nations unless it is for the benefit of all. This second principle simply guarantees that no nation shall suffer because of the desires of a bigger and perhaps more powerful nation. That's what's going on in these days and times with the League of Nations or the NATO. The third principle is to guard against any connivance within the league itself. In other words, the peace conference must not be a frame-up. There shall be no combining interest in the league in order to get a majority of power and thus put through measures which would be unjust and unfair. The fourth principle treats the question of boycott. This has been a much discussed problem and has been advocated as a means of keeping Germany in bounds after the war. But President Wilson says there shall be no economic combinations within the league and that boycott shall not be used except as a disciplinary measure. A boycott of all German-made goods has been advocated. The president does not definitely state that no such measures should be taken, but says that they should be regulated. And last but not least, in this remarkable set of rules of conduct for the future peace leagues is that the concerning treaties and agreements, the president says that all international agreements and treaties shall be made known to the rest of the world. But the supreme law of the land in the Americas, is the Constitution and the treaties. This will make possible all other terms, for there can be no secret agreements or combinations that will work for the good of one or two nations at the expense of the other. Take it all in. The gist of the President's 5 principles for the establishment of peace is justice and liberty for all nations for all times. Well, I would like to see them demonstrate that. That's why I like going back in the earlier manuscripts. You can see how your foremothers and forefathers governed themselves, and it is totally different than how these people in these so-called government seats govern themselves in these days and times. That's why the children are being stopped from learning cursive, because then they really can't go back and read the original Constitution and the original manuscripts just off of cursive. You also get to see all the fleeting lies that they claimed that they was going to have peace and liberty and justice, when in fact they lied. I hope you enjoyed the reading. I leave you in love and peace.